If you've ever felt like you know what to do, but you can't seem to follow through, this video is for you. Today, I'm sharing the 3 biggest shifts that helped me finally break the cycle of losing and gaining weight and go from this to this. The truth is, if you've been struggling, it's not a personal failing. It's often the result of inner forces you're not even aware of. So have you ever found yourself in this scenario? You eat one cookie and suddenly the whole day feels ruined, but you might as well eat the whole sleeve. We know that this doesn't make sense, so why do we keep going against rationality? This is called the what the hell effect. And once we trip up, continuing to eat becomes a coping mechanism to soothe feelings of failure from that one mistake. And the worst part is the spiral keeps reinforcing the same cycle over and over again. If I've been through this, I know most of you guys probably have too. I used to tell myself that I wasn't allowed to have sugar for like an entire month. It was a total ban, but when a craving would hit, for me it was always chocolate. Eventually I would give in and the guilt would just come flooding in. And I would feel like I failed. Might as well keep going now. The craving would just intensify, not because I was hungry, but because I wanted something to numb the feelings of guilt and shame. I would promise myself tomorrow will be different, but never really was, because that whole system, the restriction, the guilt, the starting over tomorrow, it just doesn't work. So how do we start to break that cycle? We have to use a little bit of reverse psychology. The more that we restrict, the more those foods become psychologically rewarding. And in a 2005 study, it was found that when people are told to avoid a food like chocolate, they end up craving it and over-consuming it later. This all goes to show that perfection backfires. When you stop demonizing some of these foods, they stop having so much power and control over you. So if we're not focusing on perfection, what should we focus on to actually make progress? And I'm gonna ask you this question. Have you ever tried not thinking about sugar or chips or chocolate or whatever it is that you mostly crave? The more you try to suppress a thought, the more it rebounds, becoming even louder in your brain. There's a famous psychology experiment. People were told, don't think of a white bear. And of course, what's the first thing that they thought about? It was a white bear, and they continued thinking about white bears. That is what's called thought rebound. The more you try not to think about something, the more your brain just fixates on it. So when you say, I'm not allowed to have chocolate, your brain keeps pulling your attention toward chocolate, which makes resisting it feel impossible. So what's the fix? Instead of obsessing over what you shouldn't eat, train your brain to focus on what you want more of. For example, increasing your protein can actually reduce your cravings. I know you've been told to eat protein, but high protein diets stimulate GLP-1, a gut hormone that regulates appetite and helps you feel satisfied. Yes, it's the same thing that Ozempic has an effect on. And in one study published in the journal Obesity, higher protein intake significantly reduced late night snacking and overall calorie intake. So focus on what to add and not what to cut out. Instead of saying, don't eat junk, try fueling up on protein at every meal, trying to get 20 to 30 grams of protein if you can. Now that we've covered 2 common thought traps, there's one more piece that can make or break your ability to stick with your habits. And it's one that maybe you haven't even noticed. We imagine that our future self will be more disciplined, more motivated, just more perfect. So we set unrealistic goals today, hoping that next week or next month or next Monday will be different. How many times have you done this? Because I know I've done it way too many. You make a giant plan, work out every day, eat all whole foods, walk 10,000 steps, get 8 hours of sleep, hydrate, meditate, stretch, meal prep, there's a lot. And then life just happens. You follow through on maybe 1 or 2 of those things, and then you end up feeling like a failure because you didn't complete all of those things. And it's not your fault. Our lives are simply too complex to expect perfection and adding in multiple things at once. And more importantly, that cycle breaks trust with yourself. Every time you continue to set your expectations too high and then fail, you continue breaking that trust. So part of how I went from feeling out of control around food to being someone that can enjoy a few bites of chocolate after dinner is that I trained my ability by working with my brain, not against it. My future self isn't superhuman. I had to recognize and accept that. It takes trial and error, and you have to be okay with the failures. And if you choose manageable goals today, you start to build something that's way more powerful than willpower. You build self-trust. And James Clear calls this casting votes for your identity. And every small win is a vote for the kind of person that you want to become. So we really need to choose goals that fit our real life today. And these are just a few of the hidden barriers that make fat loss feel so hard. But when you shift your mindset, set realistic goals, and stop villainizing some of these foods, you start to stop this cycle. You're not broken, you're not weak, and you're definitely not alone in this. You just need a better approach, one that is rooted in understanding of why we're wired this way and not restriction. So the next piece of the puzzle is learning how your rational brain and your survival brain are wired and how they often fight with each other once it comes to food. And that's what we're diving into in the next video. I'll see you there.